So what's the difference between the conscious and unconscious, right? It's really vital to understand the differences and how that affects the way you see reality, perceive reality, and also how do we actually go about change. When it comes to conscious change, it is very difficult. The reason it's very difficult is because all you're focusing on is the information you're consciously aware of, okay? And that is not the problem, that's the symptom, okay? Behaviors and emotion are indicators. They only indicate what's beneath the surface. So you got to think of things differently if you want different results. It makes sense, right? Why continue the same actions and the same thinking which created it in the first place, right? So key thing about what we want to understand here is really NLP is, in a simple sense or a general sense, is really dealing with not reality, but how do we perceive reality? And what we do is we internally represent our experience based on prior experience, right? We look at our database and what we're representing to assign meaning. That creates our emotions, that creates our actions, right? So if you keep getting X and you want Y, you have a internal problem. It's no good trying to change X, your behaviors, to try and get Y, because that's not going to work. You've got inaccuracies in your database, right? The meanings that you're creating cause the emotions and the behaviors that are leading you to Y outcome when you're trying to get X. So it's vital to understand that. Let's look at the differences between conscious and unconscious, right? So these are some of the really important things to understand. Conscious mind processes about 400 bits of information a second, right? We can only focus on about 5 to 7 bits of information. So what is the conscious mind? It's fantastic at being focused, intentional, logical, right? It's like a flashlight. Where you point it is what you'll see. However, this is where people go wrong. The unconscious processes over 1 million bits of information a second. It arranges and stores information completely differently, right? Dynamically, visually, auditory, kinesthetically, sight, smell, things like this, right? It manages a 30 trillion cell system automatically. You don't have to think about breathing. Right? Now, of course, you can consciously change your breathing, but like it's majority, 99% of the time, you don't have to think while you're sleeping, do you? How to breathe, how your heart, regulating your system at all. So they're both obviously the one system, but serve different functions, right? So we got to understand that when you assign meaning, it generates emotion and behavior, and your unconscious is searching. It's searching the database to know, okay, how do I respond in this situation in an instant? And this is what trips people up. You are viewing reality through distorted, deleted, and generalized information. As I said, if you want X but keep getting Y, your internal database is inaccurate. The goal is not to force behavior change, it's to identify the internal mismatch that produces this outcome. So, the single strongest force in human behavior is acting in harmony with your identity. So, you have to understand reality itself is only your perception, and you're perceiving through deleted, distorted, and generalized filters. Example, all men are like this. All women. When you hear words like all, everything, all the time, that is a generalized view of a situation, right? Which can be accurate because you haven't met all men. They all don't behave in the same way, right? So it's really important that your language is a doorway in, and your emotions and the behavioral patterns that are happening. These are all indicators of a problem, not the problem. They are the symptoms, all right? So these only show you that something is mismatching, and that we must look internal first to find what is happening, right? So what we do here at Ladonian Method is really we look at to understand how your identity is shaped, right? 0 to 7, your identity is shaped in a certain way. Number 1, you must have internal trust. So we have needs, right? Everyone has these needs, which are not, I'm not talking about the 7 human needs or the 6 human needs that are often, we have been much more precise with this, right? So there's a sense of being anchored, feeling protected, right? Feeling like you've got that internal safety. And that all starts when you're young. It all starts in your environment. So if you don't have healthy people around you, you're going to model them unconsciously. It's not your choice. It's really just because of your environment. So we grow up without having the internal trust to move forward, right? We hesitate. We don't make decisions. We back out. That's not because there's something wrong. There's something wrong with the patterns that are going on. It's not about your identity. It's actually about the patterns that are mismatching, right? So we don't have the trust, then we don't have the personal power, right, to express ourselves. So the next layer, if you like, or the next part of that foundation is personal expression, personal power, right? Being unapologetic. This is who I am. I'm not apologizing for who I am. This is what I want in life. It's that assertiveness. And I'm not talking you're aggressive. You're just assertive as in you know who you are, you know what you want, and you go after it, which is the next system, right? When you know who you are, you know what you want, you can execute. Where people fall into this trap, right, is where they're looking through the world in this very black and white. I'm right or wrong. I'm good, I'm bad, right? I'm a failure, I'm a success. There's something wrong with me. I'm defective, I'm flawed, right? These are those wounds, right, which form, right, like these holes in your foundation, these cracks in your foundation. So when we have these wounds, right, I'm not safe, I don't trust myself, right, I don't feel like I can assert myself, I feel I'm bad for saying no. These are the holes in your bucket, right? These is what leaking out. So what a lot of people are doing, right, is they're looking outside of themselves to get these unconscious needs met. So they're looking at people, right? They need people to approve of them, accept them, for them to feel accepted. They don't have internal acceptance. So this is where things go wrong, where you get these overcompensating behaviors of people pleasing, right? Seeking approval. I'm not good enough. So you're going after significance and achievement. So you feel that you are worthy, right? You constantly want to be seen and heard by people. You're putting this pressure on friends, family. You need to be seen. You don't understand me, right? Because you have those wounds that are causing these leakages, right? It causes this overcompensating behavior. So the problems aren't, like I said, solving the problem, I should say, is not like, well, just get over yourself and move forward, right? You're not going to act. Remember, the single strongest force in human behavior is acting in harmony with your identity. If these patterns, right, are serving a need that's unconscious, that's in an unhealthy way, you are going to stay in alignment with that. Okay, the only way people change without being intentional is they have a major crisis in their life which shakes them out of that pattern. But that is extremely, you have no control over these things, right? So it's better that you learn how to actually make the changes internally before your life blows up, before you have train wrecks. But most people pretend that it's okay. It's good. Relationship's fine. I probably won't go into those stories. I just have some memories of people in my life where they were that opinion. It's fine. There's no issues here. And anyway, their train crashed. And so it's really important that you start to look at the areas of your life and look at, well, where do I want to be? What's my ideal? And where am I at? And if I look at my family upbringing, how do people act? Do they trust themselves? Do they back themselves? Are they supporting and encouraging of themselves? Do they have a sense of healthy appreciation? Are they unapologetic? Are they somebody that's assertive and will put their needs forward and say no? Hey, I can't help there. Right? Do they have that healthy sense of contribution? They're doing things that feel significant and important, not because of others, but because they know who they are. Right? They're authentic and real. Right? They know who they are. And that creates a completely different life for you when you live in these healthy systems that are self-supporting, and your only way for most people is getting it external, right? From other people. And this is about creating more choice for you and creating patterns that are healthy, patterns that self-support and are self-sustaining versus, right, where we've got this happening. Because we got all these leaks going on, we got to keep filling ourselves up with all this external stuff, people, events, right? We're trying to make all this happen. What if we could change that? What if we could resolve these unmet needs, get you healthy and sustainable, so you can go and live your life, right? You get what you want, go contribute to people, have a meaningful life. This is what we help people do in 12 weeks.